Welcome back. Have you ever noticed that the hardest working people are rarely the wealthiest? You see people grinding for 12, 14, 16 hours a day, sacrificing their health and their families, yet they are barely scraping by. Meanwhile, others seem to attract opportunities, resources, and wealth with a fraction of the effort. What is the difference? Today, I am going to reveal an ancient Jewish secret that shifts the paradigm of wealth creation. It is a secret that works not while you are hustling, but while you are sleeping. Before we dive into this profound teaching, I want to invite you to explore the Torah Millionaire Business School. This is a complete 14-module educational program that explores the Torah, Talmud, and Kabbalah perspectives on money, work, and stewardship. It is designed for those who are ready to move beyond scarcity and step into their divine inheritance. You can find the link in the description below. Now, let us begin. The secret I am sharing today is based on the Kabbalistic understanding of the soul's journey during sleep, specifically the concept of raising the sparks, or birur nitzotzot. In Jewish mysticism, it is taught that when we sleep, our physical body rests, but our soul ascends to higher spiritual realms. During this ascent, the soul has the opportunity to gather spiritual energy or sparks of holiness, which are then brought back down into the physical world when we wake up. These sparks manifest as new ideas, unexpected opportunities, and financial blessings. But here is the catch. Your soul cannot ascend if it is weighed down by the heavy, dense energy of unresolved conflict, anger, and resentment. If you go to sleep holding on to grudges, your soul remains trapped in the lower realms. It cannot gather the sparks of wealth. It only gathers more density. Let me tell you about Cornelius. Cornelius was a brilliant software developer. He had created a revolutionary app, but his business partner had betrayed him, stealing the code and launching a competing product. Cornelius was devastated. He sued his former partner, but the legal battle was draining his finances and his spirit. Every night, Cornelius went to bed consumed by rage. He would lie awake plotting his revenge, replaying the betrayal over and over in his mind. As the months went by, Cornelius' financial situation grew worse. He could not focus on creating new software because his mind was entirely occupied by the past. He was vibrating at the frequency of anger and lack. He was working hard on his lawsuit, but he was repelling wealth. His soul was tethered to his resentment, unable to ascend and gather the sparks of new creation. One day, Cornelius attended a lecture by a wise teacher who spoke about the bedtime Shema. The teacher explained that the very first words of the traditional bedtime prayer are not a request for protection, but a declaration of forgiveness. Master of the universe, I hereby forgive anyone who has angered or provoked me. The teacher explained that this is not just a moral exercise, it is a spiritual technology. Forgiveness is the mechanism that cuts the heavy ropes tying the soul to the lower realms. Cornelius was resistant. He felt that forgiving his partner meant letting him get away with theft. But the teacher clarified. Forgiveness does not mean abandoning justice. You can still pursue your lawsuit. But forgiveness means releasing the emotional poison from your own heart. It means refusing to let another person's bad behavior dictate your spiritual state. It means freeing your soul to ascend. Desperate for a change, Cornelius decided to try it. That night, before closing his eyes, he said the words, I forgive him. I release the anger. I free my soul. It felt forced at first, but he repeated it every night. Slowly, the grip of resentment began to loosen. He stopped dreaming about revenge. He started sleeping deeply for the first time in a year. And then, the shift happened. Because his soul was no longer weighed down by anger, it began to ascend during his sleep. He started waking up with new ideas. One morning, he woke up with a complete architecture for a new, even better software platform in his mind. It was a spark of genius that he had gathered in the higher realms. He built the new platform, and it was a massive success, far surpassing the app that had been stolen from him. His wealth returned, multiplied. This is how you force wealth into your life while you sleep. You do not do it by working harder. You do it by clearing the spiritual channels. When you forgive, you create a vacuum in your soul, and the universe abhors a vacuum. When you empty yourself of anger, the universe fills you with blessing. Consider the story of Vivian. Vivian was a real estate investor. She was highly competitive and viewed every other investor in her city as an enemy. If she lost a deal to a competitor, she would seethe with jealousy. She believed that there was a limited amount of wealth in the world, and if someone else got it, it meant there was less for her. Vivian's nights were restless. She would wake up in a cold sweat, worrying about her competitors. Her business was stagnant. She was working constantly, but she was not growing. She was operating from a mindset of extreme scarcity. Vivian learned about the concept of ayin tova, the good eye. This is the practice of looking at others with generosity and wishing them well. She learned that jealousy is a spiritual poison that blocks the flow of abundance. If you resent someone else's wealth, you are subconsciously telling the universe that you believe wealth is a bad thing, and the universe will not give you something you resent. Vivian decided to change her nightly routine. Instead of reviewing her competitors' successes with bitterness, she started practicing the good eye. Before she went to sleep, she would actively bless her competitors. She would say, "I am glad they closed that deal. I wish them success. There is more than enough for everyone." This was incredibly difficult for her ego, but she persisted. As she practiced blessing her competitors, her internal state shifted from scarcity to abundance. She stopped seeing the world as a battlefield and started seeing it as a banquet. Her sleep became peaceful. The results were astonishing. Because she was no longer radiating the repellent energy of jealousy, people became more drawn to her. Other investors, sensing her new, collaborative spirit, started bringing her joint venture opportunities. She gained access to deals she never would have found on her own. Her wealth expanded rapidly, not because she defeated her competitors, but because she stopped fighting them. She allowed the wealth to flow in while she slept, simply by changing her spiritual frequency. The ancient Jewish secret is that your nighttime state determines your daytime reality. If you go to sleep in a state of contraction, fear, anger, or jealousy, you will wake up in a contracted world. You will have to fight for every scrap. But if you go to sleep in a state of expansion, forgiveness, gratitude, and blessing, you will wake up in an expanded world. Opportunities will seek you out. How do you put this into practice? It requires a deliberate bedtime ritual. You cannot just fall into bed exhausted while scrolling through the news or watching television. You must consciously transition from the physical world to the spiritual world. First, you must practice the release of anger. Review your day. Who annoyed you? Who disappointed you? Who wronged you? Visualize cutting the energetic cords that connect you to those people. Say the words out loud. I forgive them. I release them. I do not carry this into my sleep. Second, you must practice the good eye. Think of someone who has what you want, someone who is more successful, more wealthy, or more recognized. Actively bless them. Wish them continued success. Feel genuine happiness for their good fortune. This rewires your subconscious mind to associate wealth with joy rather than resentment. Let us look at the story of Reginald. Reginald owned a small manufacturing company. He was a good man, but he was constantly stressed about his supply chain and his employees. He felt like he had to control every tiny detail of his operation. He was a micromanager, and his employees resented him for it. His nights were spent worrying about production schedules and quality control. Reginald learned about the concept of bitachon, absolute trust in the Creator. He realized that his micromanagement was a symptom of his lack of faith. He believed that if he did not control everything, everything would fall apart. He was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Reginald started a new bedtime practice. He would visualize his factory, his employees, and his supply chain. Then he would consciously hand them over to God. He would say, "I have done my best today. Now, I place my business in your hands. I trust you to manage it while I sleep." This act of surrender changed Reginald's leadership style. Because he was no longer carrying the anxiety of control, he became more relaxed during the day. He started trusting his employees more. He gave them more responsibility. The morale in the factory improved dramatically. Productivity went up and errors went down. His business became more profitable, not because he managed it tighter, but because he let it go. When you surrender control before sleep, you are acknowledging that you are not the ultimate source of your wealth. You are a partner in creation, but you are not the creator. This humility is the key that unlocks the door to divine abundance. The practice of clearing your soul before sleep is like preparing a field for planting. If the field is full of rocks and weeds, the seeds will not grow. Anger, jealousy, and anxiety are the rocks and weeds of the soul. When you remove them through forgiveness, blessing, and surrender, you create fertile ground. While you sleep, the universe plants the seeds of new ideas, new connections, and new wealth. This is not a passive process. It requires intense spiritual work. It is much easier to hold on to a grudge than to forgive. It is much easier to be jealous than to bless a competitor. It is much easier to worry than to trust. But the easy path leads to scarcity. The difficult path, the path of spiritual discipline, leads to unlimited abundance. Think about the story of Bartholomew. Bartholomew was a writer who had been struggling for years to get his work published. He had received dozens of rejection letters. He was bitter and cynical. He believed that the publishing industry was rigged against him. Every night he went to sleep cursing the editors who had rejected him. Bartholomew learned about the power of the nighttime spiritual reset. He realized that his bitterness was poisoning his creativity. He decided to change his approach. Before bed, instead of dwelling on his rejections, he started visualizing his book in the hands of readers. He visualized the joy and inspiration his words would bring them. He blessed the editors, even the ones who had rejected him, wishing them success in finding the right books for their publishing houses. This shift in focus changed the energy of Bartholomew's writing. His words became more uplifting, more resonant. He stopped writing from a place of desperation and started writing from a place of service. A few months later, he submitted a new manuscript. It was accepted immediately and became a bestseller. His wealth arrived not because he finally beat the system, but because he aligned his soul with the frequency of giving and blessing. The ancient Jewish secret is profound in its simplicity. Your wealth is not determined by how hard you work during the day. It is determined by how deeply you surrender during the night. It is determined by the purity of your soul when it ascends to the higher realms. If you want to force wealth into your life, stop trying to force it with your physical effort. Start clearing the spiritual channels. Forgive those who have wronged you. Bless those who have what you want. Surrender your worries to the Creator. Do this every single night. Make it a non-negotiable part of your routine. When you do this, you will wake up different. You will wake up lighter, clearer, and more inspired. You will start seeing opportunities that were invisible to you before. You will attract people and resources effortlessly. You will discover that the universe is eager to bless you if you only get out of your own way. This is the power of the nighttime reset. It is the ultimate wealth creation strategy. It requires no capital, no special skills, and no extra hours of work. It only requires a willing heart and a disciplined mind. Start tonight. Before you close your eyes, take a deep breath. Let go of the anger. Let go of the jealousy. Let go of the fear. Hand your life over to the one who created it. And then sleep in peace. Watch what happens when you wake up. Watch how the wealth begins to flow. Thank you for watching. May your nights be filled with spiritual elevation, and may your days be filled with miraculous abundance. Shalom. To truly grasp the magnitude of this nighttime practice, we must delve deeper into the Kabbalistic concept of the vessel, or the kli. In Jewish mystical thought, the divine light of abundance, the or, is infinite and constantly flowing. The reason we do not all experience infinite wealth is not because the light is withheld, but because our vessels are either too small, or they are cracked, or they are filled with debris. When you spend your day engaged in the cutthroat world of business, your vessel inevitably accumulates debris. The stress of a lost deal, the irritation with a slow vendor, the fear of an economic downturn, all of these emotions act like sludge, clogging the vessel of your soul. If you go to sleep without cleaning this vessel, the sludge hardens. Over time, your capacity to receive divine blessing shrinks. You might be working twice as hard, but your vessel can only hold half as much. The nighttime ritual of forgiveness and release is the spiritual equivalent of scrubbing the vessel clean. When you say, "I forgive everyone who has angered me," you are actively dissolving the sludge. You are expanding your capacity to receive. This is why the wealth seems to be forced into your life. It is not actually forced. It is simply that the blockages have been removed, allowing the natural, infinite flow of abundance to rush in. Let us examine the story of Eleanor. Eleanor was a highly driven consultant. She was brilliant, but she was also deeply insecure. She constantly compared her progress to her peers on social media. Every night, she would scroll through her feeds, looking at the successes of others and feeling a deep, gnawing sense of inadequacy. She would go to sleep feeling like she was falling behind, feeling like she was not enough. Eleanor's business reflected her internal state. She attracted clients who undervalued her, who haggled over her fees, and who demanded endless revisions. She was exhausted and underpaid. She was operating from a frequency of lack, and the universe was matching that frequency perfectly. Eleanor learned about the importance of protecting her consciousness before sleep. She realized that her late-night scrolling was an act of spiritual self-sabotage. She was intentionally filling her vessel with the debris of comparison and inadequacy right before her soul was supposed to ascend. She made a radical change. She instituted a strict digital sunset. 1 hour before bed, all screens were turned off. Instead of looking at what others had, she started a practice of hakarat hatov, recognizing the good. She bought a beautiful journal, and every night she wrote down 3 specific things she was grateful for in her own business. She focused on the clients who respected her, the projects she enjoyed, and the skills she possessed. The transformation was not instantaneous, but it was profound. By ending her day with gratitude instead of comparison, Eleanor changed the trajectory of her soul's nighttime journey. She stopped ascending into the realms of lack and started ascending into the realms of abundance. She began waking up feeling capable and confident. This internal shift changed her external reality. Because she felt more valuable, she started setting firmer boundaries with her clients. She raised her rates. To her surprise, she did not lose business. She gained better business. She started attracting high-level clients who respected her expertise and paid her what she was worth. Her income doubled within 6 months. The wealth flowed in because she had expanded her vessel through the practice of nighttime gratitude. The illusion of the modern world is that action is the only variable that matters. We are taught that if we want more, we must do more. But the ancient Jewish wisdom teaches that the state of being is far more powerful than the state of doing. Action is necessary, of course. You must build the business, make the calls, and do the work. But the action is merely the physical channel. The spiritual frequency behind the action determines the outcome. If you take action from a place of fear, anger, or scarcity, your action will yield limited results. It will be a struggle. But if you take action from a place of peace, trust, and abundance, your action will be magnified. It will be effortless. The nighttime reset is the mechanism by which you calibrate your spiritual frequency for the following day. Consider the story of Theodore. Theodore was an inventor who had spent years developing a new type of water filtration system. He had poured his life savings into the prototype, but he could not secure the funding to manufacture it. He was facing bankruptcy. The stress was destroying his marriage and his health. He felt like he was pushing a boulder up a mountain, only to have it roll back down every day. Theodore was introduced to the concept of minutia, true spiritual rest. He learned that true rest is not just the absence of physical labor, it is the absence of internal striving. It is the deep knowing that the outcome is not entirely dependent on your own strength. Theodore realized that even when he was physically in bed, his mind was still pushing the boulder. He was still striving, still fighting, still trying to force the universe to bend to his will. He decided to practice true minutia. Every night he would sit quietly and visualize his invention. He would acknowledge his hard work, and then he would mentally place the prototype on an altar, offering it up to the Creator. He would say, "I have done the work of my hands. Now I ask for the blessing of your hands." This practice of surrender broke the cycle of striving. Theodore stopped trying to force the outcome. He found a deep sense of peace, knowing that he had done his part. He started sleeping soundly. A few weeks later, Theodore attended a casual networking event that he almost skipped because he was tired. There, he struck up a conversation with a man who turned out to be an angel investor specializing in clean technology. The investor was captivated by Theodore's calm confidence and deep belief in his product. He funded the manufacturing, and the filtration system became a global success. Theodore's wealth arrived not when he was pushing the hardest, but after he had learned to truly rest and surrender. Thank you for joining me. May your soul ascend in peace, and may you awaken to a reality of unlimited blessing. Shalom.